Hello, YouTube. Years ago, I used to live in Houston, and the reason I left back in 2020, right when the pandemic hit, was because crime became a severe problem there. I had suffered two burglaries, vandalism of my house that resulted in us losing running water and working sanitation, and there were fixtures that were taken during the second burglary, and then retaliation by the criminals that were responsible. Law enforcement did not help with the crime recovery. We had damage that was expensive to fix. It cost thousands of dollars. And at the time, I couldn't afford to shell out $2,500 to fix my septic system or replace my water tank and cut open the cement in my well house to get the pipes that were broken off in the slab replaced. We were also missing a toilet, and the windows were broken out of the house. I wrote to all the resources under the sun that I could think of there: United Way, the Red Cross, housing rehabilitation, and others, and I couldn't get any assistance. And this is on top of the fact that our house was already damaged from Harvey. We had mold there. I spent a long time trying to fix the place, and things never got better. That's what I'm trying to say. It was a disaster. I held on for several years after Harvey. My family and I were sick, and the burglary that left us without running water or working sewer was the last straw. After that, I realized that we didn't have any allies there in the community, and when we left, we got out just in time. Crime became so extraordinarily bad there that they were getting between 500 and 1,000 calls a month for service out of that area near South and Southwest Houston. It was horrific. People were being murdered. People were being stabbed. There were home invasions going on. There were burglaries going on. And there was organized crime going on. Several different kinds. And it was an outlying suburb in the Houston area. It's really a rather extraordinary story, given the huge amount of effort that we invested in the community there trying to better things. But what ultimately happened was, because of the damage that my home had and the fact that they couldn't get a handle on crime in the region, I couldn't get anyone to purchase the home, even to just get out from under the loan, because we had a criminal element that was chasing off all the potential investors. And that was in a housing market that was absolutely on fire at the time. Houses weren't even listed for a day, and they were selling that quickly. I had probably 15 separate companies contact me asking to tour the house and look at buying the house. And then they got in there, or they would go through the neighborhood and they'd be like, nope, we changed our mind. Because somebody would heckle them. They would walk up to them while they were stopped at the property, and they would start talking about how the property was a terrible place and all this. And when in reality, it was people in the neighborhood who were involved in organized crime that did not want people to purchase that home. And they had been there for a long time, decades. They were established. It was a tax shelter situation, generations of people living under one roof and several other roofs throughout the community. And of course, it was an outlier between several different jurisdictions. All I wanted to do was sell the house and leave, because we couldn't get help mitigating the mold, and our utility bill had tripled almost overnight. Well, what ended up happening was the mortgage company wouldn't take the house back, even after they already had the keys. And I had to contact the local county government because we owed back taxes for all the years the mortgage company hadn't taken payments from us. They refused payments and they wouldn't allow forbearance or any kind of payment arrangement. And I told them, look, you can have the house because I can't fix it. And there's too much crime there. It's not safe for my family. You know, this is a bank-owned asset. And yes, we financed it, but we don't own it. I told them to go out there and assume responsibility for the property because it was vacant and it had been for 3 years. They finally went out and finalized foreclosure proceedings and took control of the property in October of 2022. It's July 2023 now, but we had everything invested in that house, and it's very unlikely that we'll ever be homeowners again. And I just wish that they had done a better job helping us recover from Harvey and the burglaries and the retaliation by people when we reported the burglaries. And the additional property damage that was done. It was just ridiculous. Things were so bad down there in that area. And now that house has gone to auction, and I don't know how I'm going to fix my credit. It's going to take many, many years to get the foreclosure off. I've gotten with some agencies, but we had so much trauma from everything that happened down there, and we couldn't get any support with legal aid or with the emotional fallout, nightmares, and long-term fear of crime after that happened. And they just didn't seem to grasp, you know, that this whole area where the property was located, like 2 or 3 square miles around where that property was just, the crime was absolutely out of control. It was terrible. Not just during the height of the pandemic, but we had crime that was more than twice as bad as the national average in this little, you know, jurisdiction. It's almost 250% worse than the nationwide crime average as far as burglary and robbery and things of that nature. And of course, we had certain elements in there. You can imagine the kind of stuff that you would expect to find in a place like Los Angeles or Chicago. Drug trafficking, people involved in stealing catalytic converters, and heavy issues with addiction across the region because poverty was a major problem. And it was just a major trouble area that they refused to address. And it took them years of me writing letters to finally get them to do something about it. And by then, we were no longer invested. We were no longer stakeholders. And so I wish that things had turned out differently. That house had our life savings invested in it. And Houston needs to take better care of crime victims. They need to do more for those people. You can't just expect people to, you know, just move on, especially after multiple incidents. And you're sitting there, especially if you're a single parent, and you're like, what am I supposed to do about this? You know, they wonder why people go out and arm themselves to the teeth. They wonder why people go out and buy weapons of war. And the reason for it is that people don't feel that they can rely on law enforcement to ensure their safety or to stop the criminals that are engaging in violent crime and get them off the street.